Raymond had always believed he could fake anything for the sake of his career, but the moment Riley slipped his hand into his at the book launch, every lie they had rehearsed turned dangerously real, and that was the moment he knew he was in trouble. The crowd roared like a tidal wave bursting through the bookstore lobby, cameras flashing, questions thrown from every direction, as if they were standing on a red carpet rather than a cramped corner of downtown. Raymond forced a practiced smile, tightening his grip on Riley just enough to keep him from drifting away. Not that Riley seemed to want to. He leaned in effortlessly, his blonde hair brushing Raymond's cheek like it belonged there. The irony was almost painful. They had agreed to this plan for one reason only. Raymond needed a splashy romance angle to promote his new book, and Riley, his longtime friend turned assistant, was the only person he trusted enough to fake date without the media ripping him apart. Simple, clean, practically harmless. Except nothing about tonight felt harmless. Raymond could feel the slight tremor in Riley's fingers. Not fear, something quieter and far more dangerous. Riley looked up at him with an expression that wasn't written in any script they had prepared. "You good, Ray?" Riley whispered through his perfect fake smile. Perfect. That was the problem. Riley had always been too good at playing supportive, at standing in the background, ready to catch Raymond when his career stumbled. Now he was being asked to step into the spotlight to pretend to be something he wasn't. Or maybe something he was. Raymond couldn't tell anymore. "I'm fine. Just follow my lead," Raymond murmured back, though his heartbeat betrayed him, thudding in chaotic patterns. The event coordinator waved them toward the stage, beaming as if this whole charade were a love story she personally manifested. And the posters plastered behind the podium only served to twist the knife deeper. Raymond Grant and the new novel that promised romance, vulnerability, and a story ripped straight from the heart. If only they knew whose heart he was about to rip open. As they walked hand in hand across the stage, the applause hit them like heat. Riley squeezed his fingers once, grounding him, and Raymond hated how much that simple gesture meant. Hated how good Riley looked under the stage lights, blue eyes glowing like they were carved from the ocean. Hated how easy it was to imagine this was real. He took his seat, and Riley sat beside him like they were halves of one whole. A journalist in the front row raised her hand the moment the host invited questions. "First of all, congratulations on the book. Raymond, it's already trending." She leaned forward. "And second, I have to ask, when did you and Riley realize you had feelings for each other?" Raymond felt his throat close. This was supposed to be the easy part, where he delivered a cute rehearsed line about chemistry, timing, friendship blooming into romance. Instead, the weight of the question slammed into him with unexpected force. Beside him, Riley stayed perfectly still. Raymond inhaled and forced out the line he had practiced, but it sounded foreign even to himself. "Kind of snuck up on us," he said, glancing at Riley. "We've known each other for years. It just felt natural." Riley's answering smile was soft in a way that twisted Raymond's entire ribcage. If she only knew how natural it truly felt. After the interview, after the crowd thinned and the book signing line wrapped around the hallway, after Raymond's hand cramped from signing too many copies, he finally felt breath return to his lungs when he and Riley slipped backstage to the quiet storage room. Riley let out a long exhale, slumping against a stack of boxes. "I think that went well," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. "You think Raymond shot him a look?" she asked when we caught feelings. "Caught feelings, Riley? That's not a casual question." Riley blinked, as if surprised by Raymond's tone. "We knew questions like that would come up." "I know, but..." Raymond trailed off. "But what?" Riley asked slowly. Raymond turned away, suddenly restless, pacing between boxes of unsold merchandise. He hated how his chest tightened every time he thought about the look Riley gave him on stage, genuine, tender, unguarded. He should have stopped this entire plan before they crossed a line he couldn't uncross. Ray shook his head. "I just don't want this to get messy for you. The publicity, the rumors, the spotlight. I don't want you dragged into the chaos of my career. Riley crossed his arms. Raymond, I signed up for this. You didn't force me. That wasn't the part that scared him. Raymond leaned his palms against the table, shoulders tense. I just worry you won't know when I'm acting and when I'm not. The silence that followed cracked something open between them. Riley stepped closer, every footfall steady, deliberate. When he stopped behind Raymond, his breath brushed the back of Raymond's neck. I know the difference, he whispered. Raymond nearly flinched from the warmth in Riley's voice. Dramatic or not, the air vibrated with something he couldn't ignore anymore. When Raymond turned around, Riley stood so close the space between them felt too small to hide in. Riley's eyes searched his face, not for answers but for honesty. You don't have to protect me from your life, Ray, Riley murmured. Or from you. Raymond swallowed hard. This wasn't part of the plan. And yet here they were spiraling into something neither of them could pretend away. Before Raymond could respond, the door burst open and the event's PR manager poked her head inside. You two are needed outside, the fan photos are starting. Couples shots first, please. She sounded cheerful, oblivious, completely unaware that she had just stepped into the middle of something dangerous. Riley brushed past Raymond with a polite smile for the manager and walked toward the door like nothing had shifted. But Raymond felt the change in every breath he took. This was supposed to be a simple fake dating act. So why did stepping beside Riley for the photo line feel like stepping into a truth he wasn't ready to face? They took picture after picture, arms around each other, Riley's head leaning against Raymond's shoulder, smiles that looked entirely too real. Fans cooed, camera flashes flickered, and Raymond felt like he was living someone else's life, someone braver, bolder, willing to risk everything for a chance at love. But he wasn't that man, at least not yet. After an hour, when the event finally wrapped up and they escaped into the cold night air, Riley kicked off his shoes dramatically and groaned. My feet hate me. Raymond snorted. You stood still for pictures. How does that hurt you? It's an art form. Very painful. Raymond laughed a little too hard, the sound cracking at the edges. He shoved his hands into his pockets and stared at the ground. Beside him, Riley softened. Hey, Riley nudged his elbow. Did we go too far for you in there? Raymond hesitated, then shook his head. No, you were perfect. That's the problem. Riley blinked. Problem. Raymond looked up at the sky, avoiding Riley's gaze like it might burn him. It's supposed to be pretend, but I didn't feel like I was pretending tonight. The words slipped out before he could catch them. Riley froze. Raymond didn't look at him, couldn't. The air thickened with something raw, something he couldn't name without breaking. Ray, there's something I should tell you, Riley began, his voice trembling slightly. Something I should have told you before we started this whole thing. Raymond's heartbeat stuttered. But before Riley could finish the sentence, a car pulled up, its headlights slicing through the moment, and the driver leaned out. Raymond, grant your ride. Reality crashed into them both. Riley stepped back. The words he had tried to say hung unfinished, suspended between them like a fragile thread. Raymond felt it snap. He opened the door and turned to look at Riley one last time. Riley's expression was unreadable, but his eyes were unbearably honest. Good night, Ray, he said quietly. Raymond forced a smile. Good night. He slipped into the car and shut the door, feeling the echo of Riley's almost confession chasing him into the dark. He should have felt relieved that the night was finally over. But all he felt was the hollow ache of wanting something he wasn't sure he was allowed to have. Something that wasn't supposed to be real. Something named Riley. And the worst part, it already was. Raymond didn't sleep that night. He lay awake in the dim glow of his apartment, staring at the ceiling like it was supposed to give him answers. His phone buzzed every few minutes with notifications from social media, tagged posts, articles praising his adorable relationship, fans calling him and Riley the literary world's new favorite couple. The internet had already done what it always did, turned a spark into a wildfire. He should have been thrilled. This was exactly what his publisher wanted. Exactly what his career needed. But every time he closed his eyes, all he could see was the way Riley looked at him right before the car interrupted. The words he didn't get to say. The way his voice cracked like something inside him was breaking free. Around 3 in the morning, Raymond finally gave up on pretending sleep was possible. He dragged himself into the kitchen, poured a glass of cold water, and leaned against the counter. The apartment felt too quiet, too large, too empty. He wasn't used to silence. He wasn't used to feeling anything this loudly. He should text Riley, ask what he'd been trying to say, apologize for running, act normal for the sake of the plan. Instead, he stood frozen, staring at his phone as if it were a live grenade. By sunrise, he still hadn't messaged. By noon, he regretted it. Raymond showed up at the publishing office later that morning for a follow-up meeting, exhausted but determined to act like everything was fine. The lobby was already plastered with photos from last night, his and Riley's faces smiling down at him with a warmth he couldn't fake now if he tried. The receptionist grinned at him. "Big night. How your boyfriend is adorable." Raymond's throat went dry. He forced a smile. "Yeah, he is." The elevator doors opened, saving him from the conversation, and he stepped inside, leaning into the cool metal wall as the doors slid shut. He wasn't prepared when the doors opened on the 12th floor, and he found Riley standing there, holding a cardboard tray of coffees like he had walked in from a completely different universe. Riley froze. Raymond froze harder. "You look like death warmed over," Riley said after a beat, frowning as he stepped inside the elevator with him. "Didn't sleep," Raymond muttered. "Me neither," Riley answered softly. The elevator hummed upward. Raymond stared at the floor numbers lighting up one by one. He didn't trust himself to look at Riley right now, not when he could feel the weight of last night pressing against both of them like a storm cloud. "So coffee," Riley said lightly, extending a cup toward him. "Your usual, triple shot, because you look like you might collapse." Raymond took it, fingers brushing Riley's. The touch was brief, accidental, harmless. Except nothing felt harmless anymore. "Thanks," he mumbled. The elevator dinged. Riley stepped out first. Raymond followed, slower, feeling like he was walking into a conversation he wasn't ready for. As they entered the conference room, the PR manager practically vibrated with excitement. "Gentlemen, sit. Oh my God, the pictures from last night are going viral. You two are already trending on 4 platforms. Do you know how rare that is, Raymond? Your book pre-sales just shot up 30% overnight." Raymond tried to summon the enthusiasm she wanted, but his chest felt tight. Beside him, Riley smiled politely, though he looked a little pale. The PR manager leaned over the table like she was sharing a state secret. "So we need to keep the momentum going. More public appearances. More cozy couple moments. Maybe a cute Q&A livestream. Maybe a couples challenge video. Ooh, maybe a kissing booth charity thing." Raymond choked on his coffee. Riley's eyes widened comically. The PR manager waved a hand. "Relax, relax. I'm joking. Mostly. But the chemistry, the public loves you too. It would be criminal not to lean into it." Raymond glanced sideways at Riley. Something flickered in Riley's eyes, something close to pain, before he quickly masked it. "We'll do whatever's needed," Riley said calmly before Raymond could form a coherent sentence. "Right, Ray." Raymond hated how that felt like a test. He nodded stiffly. "Yeah, of course." The PR manager clapped her hands. "Wonderful, I'll get the contract updates drafted. We'll need to schedule a couple shoot later this week. Something intimate but tasteful. Fans love authenticity." Authenticity. The word hit Raymond like a sucker punch. After the meeting ended, Riley slipped out of the room first, heading toward his desk. Raymond followed him without even meaning to, like his feet had made the decision for him. "Riley," he called. Riley stopped, didn't turn. Raymond swallowed. "About last night." Riley stiffened, then slowly turned to face him. His expression was unreadable, like he had spent hours building emotional armor. "We should go over the schedule," he said quietly. "They want us together a lot. More than before." Raymond stepped closer. "Riley, that's not what I meant." Riley finally looked up, blue eyes tired and too honest. "What did you mean then?" Raymond opened his mouth, but the words got stuck in his throat again. How was he supposed to explain something he could barely admit to himself? Riley exhaled and looked away first. "It's fine, Ray. Really. We don't have to complicate this. We said we'd do this for your launch, so let's just do it. Okay." Raymond hated the way that sounded. Like Riley had folded himself into something smaller. Like he was retreating. He reached out on instinct, catching Riley's wrist lightly. Riley froze. "I didn't mean to shut you down last night," Raymond said, voice low and raw. "You were going to say something. Something important." Riley's jaw tightened. His eyes softened only for a moment before he pulled gently out of Raymond's grip. "It doesn't matter anymore," he murmured. "Yes, it does." Riley shook his head. "Not if you're not ready for it." Raymond stepped back as if the floor had cracked beneath his feet. Riley offered a small, sad smile. "Let's just focus on the plan. That's simpler." Simpler, but not easier. Raymond watched Riley walk down the hallway, every step measured, like he was trying not to break. And Raymond realized with a sinking feeling that maybe he wasn't the only one who had stopped pretending. The next few days felt like walking through emotional quicksand. Every moment with Riley was polite but distant, still soft, still kind, but careful in a way that made Raymond's chest ache. It was like Riley had drawn a chalk line around himself, and Raymond wasn't allowed to cross it. Not that he blamed him. Raymond had been the one to step back. Now he kept replaying that moment outside the car, the almost confession over and over in his mind, wondering what Riley had been trying to say, wondering if he even deserved to know now. The couple shoot was scheduled for Thursday. By Wednesday night, Raymond still hadn't figured out how to talk to him. His publisher had rented a cozy loft studio filled with warm lighting, soft props, and an aesthetic that screamed effortless intimacy. Someone had even set out a tray of matching sweaters. Raymond wanted to hurl them out the window. Riley arrived before him, sitting quietly on the edge of the sofa set, scrolling through something on his phone. The soft lighting made him look unreal, golden, heartbreakingly beautiful. Raymond swallowed hard. The photographer approached with a bright smile. "So the vibe today is natural affection. Nothing too posed. We want warmth, connection, little moments of love. Just be yourselves." Be themselves. If only they knew what that meant. Raymond sat beside Riley on the sofa. Riley offered a small nod in greeting, but his body stayed tense, his shoulders held too tightly. The photographer snapped a few test shots. "Closer, please," she encouraged. "Maybe lean into each other a little. There should be no space between you. You're in love after all." Riley hesitated for half a second before shifting closer. He looped an arm gently around Raymond's waist, his touch soft but cautious. Raymond felt the air leave his lungs. His own arm moved around Riley almost on instinct, pulling him slightly closer, close enough to breathe him in. Riley let out the faintest breath, hitch barely audible but unmistakable. "Perfect," the photographer whispered, "just like that." They moved through pose after pose, each one a dagger to Raymond's self-control. Riley leaning his head on Raymond's shoulder. Raymond brushing Riley's hair back gently. Their hands intertwined, Riley's thumb unconsciously tracing slow circles against his skin. Every click of the camera felt like ripping open a door Raymond wasn't ready to walk through and couldn't bear to close anymore. At one point, the photographer stepped back with a dreamy sigh. "I want one more set by the window, something tender. Riley, can you rest your forehead against Raymond's? Just let the emotion happen naturally." Naturally. Raymond swallowed. They moved to the window. The city stretched out behind them in a blur of lights. Riley stepped close hesitantly at first. Then, with a small exhale, he leaned forward until their foreheads touched. Raymond felt the world tilt. Riley's breath mingled with his own. His eyelashes brushed Raymond's cheek. His voice came out as a whisper, barely audible. "Ray, this is too much." Raymond's heartbeat thundered. He lifted a hand, cupping Riley's cheek with a tenderness he didn't know he could show. "Tell me what you meant that night," he breathed. Riley closed his eyes. "I can't." "Why not?" "Because you'll run again." Raymond felt the truth of it hit him hard. He had run, and Riley had felt that rejection deeper than he let on. "I won't," he whispered. "You will," Riley murmured. "When you realize what I feel isn't something I can turn off for the sake of your career." Raymond's breath caught. Riley pulled back just slightly, eyes shining with a hurt he'd tried so hard to hide. "I wasn't pretending that night, Ray. I haven't been pretending for a long time." The room fell silent. Raymond felt the ground drop beneath him. He stared at Riley, the full weight of that confession settling into his bones. The honesty, the vulnerability, the fear. Riley looked away, blinking hard. "You don't have to say anything. I'm not asking for anything. I just needed you to know. Because being this close to you, pretending like it's nothing, it's tearing me apart a little every day." Raymond opened his mouth, but his voice was nowhere to be found. The photographer called from across the room, oblivious. "Beautiful, perfect, give me a few more just like that." Riley stepped back quickly, wiping the emotion from his face with years of practiced grace. He turned toward the camera with a soft smile that didn't reach his eyes. Raymond stood frozen, every part of him splintering under the weight of the truth. Riley loved him. Really loved him. And Raymond had been so busy protecting himself that he hadn't realized he was hurting the one person who had always stood by him. He needed to say something, anything, but the words weren't ready. Not yet. Riley moved through the rest of the shoot with quiet professionalism, giving the camera everything it wanted while giving Raymond nothing at all. When the session finally ended, Riley grabbed his bag and headed toward the exit without lingering. Raymond followed. Riley didn't stop. "Riley, please." Riley turned slowly, expression guarded, voice soft. "Ray, I told you I didn't expect anything. You don't owe me anything." Raymond stepped closer. "Yes, I do." Riley shook his head. His voice cracked. "Don't say that unless you mean it." Raymond swallowed hard. "I'm trying to." Riley looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded once, quietly. "Try harder." He turned and left the studio. Raymond stood in the empty loft, surrounded by props meant to sell a love story. But the only one he cared about was slipping through his fingers. And for the first time in his life, Raymond realized that no publisher, no publicity stunt, no fake romance mattered more than the real heart he was in danger of losing.